Crypto charts are looking terrible right now, causing fear and panic to spread once again across crypto investors. But really, this is all by design. You see, in the background, significant moves are taking place. The gold price started to dump, like we anticipated it would. And this is telling us that significant rotation is about to happen. This gold versus Bitcoin chart proves it. And I'm going to tell you what the signal that's flashing on that chart means for us as we start to head deeper into Q4 of this year. Because it might not feel or look very good right now, but I'm personally not too concerned. Do me a favor, hit the like button, and let's dig a little deeper. Now guys, before we dive in and understand why what's happening on the charts right now is all by design, as well as this gold versus Bitcoin chart, which is really telling us what we should be expecting to happen next across the markets, just a quick disclaimer. Nothing I say in this video is financial advice. Everything I say is for entertainment purposes only. If you wish to invest in crypto, you should understand that it's risky and you can lose money. So don't risk money that you can't afford to lose. And by the way, down below are different exchange links and things that I personally use. If you wish to use them, then I will make a small commission, but at no expense to yourself. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get on with it. Now guys, I know I've been looking at the charts and I've been looking at crypto YouTubers and people on Twitter talk just about the charts. And yes, it does look pretty damn scary from a chart perspective, but this is all by design. If you've been subscribed to my channel over the past few months and whatever else, then you'll understand that there are significant games that are going on behind the scenes, all linked to macro and all linked to the media, the market makers, and all sorts of other things. And the fact that right now I'm looking at this Bitcoin chart and thinking that, yeah, this does look pretty bearish because we've broken this level of support here, we've come back to retest it, and just yesterday we got rejected. It does indeed feel like things are about to get a lot worse for Bitcoin and the altcoins. So why is it all by design? Well, because the sentiment in the market right now is probably the worst that I've seen since back when the FTX collapse happened. And yet Bitcoin right now is only down 15% from all-time highs. This isn't the sort of sentiment that you would expect to see around the top of the market. And yes, Bitcoin has been doing well, and you're like, well, I hold altcoins and they've been struggling too. But a lot of the larger cap altcoins like Ethereum haven't also been doing too badly. It's down currently around 22% from all-time highs. So in general, zooming out, things don't really look too bad, do they? So why is the chart looking like this? Why are we feeling like this? And why is it all really by design? Well, it's all because of this. Let me just point out a few times in history we've seen a very similar pattern play out where Bitcoin's kind of gone sideways for a bit, dipped back down, and then only pushed like this. In fact, you can see it happened here back at the end of 2023. Bitcoin kind of went sideways, puts in this high here, rips to the downside, makes everyone panic like crazy. Bitcoin then rips from 38k all the way to 74k, basically a 2x in less than 2.5 months. We can see that this happens here. You can see Bitcoin kind of go sideways, it dumps to the downside, only to then have a few fake outs and then eventually starts to move higher. We can see that this basically happened here after Bitcoin's FTX recovery. I know a lot of people got trapped in this. You can see Bitcoin went sideways, puts in a high up here, comes back down, breaks that low, only to then go up very aggressively after everyone gets trapped on the wrong side of the trade. And I believe right now we are seeing a trap like that being sprung. Now, what does that mean for us? Does it mean that Bitcoin can go down to these lows here? Does it mean that Bitcoin can go down to these lows here? And does that mean that the cycle is over? Well, probably yes, it can go down here, but probably not the cycle would be over. Now, here's why. Everybody who is controlling these markets right now, the market makers, the exchanges, different governments, media, whoever you want to call it, okay, who are all probably having calls every single day to decide where to move the market, they know that you and everybody else, and me, are sat there watching people talk about charts. Now, if you were to ignore all the sentiment, and if you were to completely ignore all of the massive macro signals right now, and focus just solely on the charts, which is what the majority of YouTubers in crypto and people on Twitter seem to do, which is just insane in my opinion, then yes, it would look pretty shaky and pretty bad. And they know that that's what everybody is paying attention to, which is why it makes it very easy to trap them in the mentality of terrible sentiment, bull market over. You get the picture. But because the sentiment is so terrible and Bitcoin is only really up here without really ever experiencing euphoria, you should really understand that this is nowhere near the end of the cycle. And in fact, the gold Bitcoin chart really tells us the truth behind what's happening. Now, perhaps you managed to catch my video that I think I made back on Friday of last week. Around 100,000 plus of you watched it. So thank you very much if you caught that. If you didn't catch it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I told you that people were lining the streets in places like the US and Australia and everywhere else right now to buy gold. And all at the time, while the major media outlets were telling you that China was buying gold and the big banks in the US were all loading up on gold, I told you that this was a major top signal and you should all be very, very cautious. Lo and behold, since saying that, the gold price has fallen by about 8%. Now, that might not sound like much to you as crypto investors, who have seen significantly more downside in your time in the markets. But given that this was the world's biggest asset with nearly $30 trillion in market cap, which is 15 times the size of Bitcoin's market cap, that's a fairly significant sell-off. In fact, this sell-off is pretty much bigger than the market cap of Bitcoin. And I believe it is only really just started. I do believe that we're going to see further downside shift. Okay, we're not necessarily going to get a full meme coin destruction, although maybe we do, but I do think that things are looking pretty bad. Think about all those people who were queuing up, taking days off work on Friday to go and buy this at the absolute tippy top, okay? And right now you can see it starting to come down. Sentiment will always be the key beyond what's happening on the charts, okay? The charts tell you only a fraction of what is really going on behind the scenes, but people use these charts to manipulate you like crazy. So after telling you that charts are not really that important, you shouldn't pay that much attention to them, allow me to present some charts of my own, which I think you should pay attention to. Now, guys, I get it. This is probably a little bit hypocritical about what I've been talking about, but this is a more drawn out, longer term chart, okay? It's on the weekly basis. It should give us a bit of a key indicator about what we're about to see. This is also paired together with the market sentiment. And not only is it paired together with the market sentiment, it's paired together with the fact that there are 4 major burning catalysts out there right now that many people have seemed to just brush over. Right now, we are about to see a rate cut happen in the United States, a major rate cut in the country that has the global currency. The Federal Reserve will cut interest rates. The fact that the government's been in shutdown for weeks is putting more pressure on it. Yes, the Middle Eastern conflict still causing a bit of stress, but it does seem to be easing off a little bit. Again, puts more pressure on the Fed to ease. Also, we're going to likely see weak job data. Again, that's going to put pressure on the Fed to ease. So many different factors. You can see again, Donald Trump has been meeting with the leaders of India, one of the major economies or major growing economies of the world right now, for a tariff deal. He's also saying that he potentially may not meet Xi Jinping, the president of China. China tomorrow will finish its annual meetings and will likely announce that they are going to start to cut rates. In addition to cutting rates, they're going to talk about quantitative easing. They're going to talk about pumping money into things like tech and trying to boost their tech sector and also boost employment and things like that. China's going to start stimulus. That's going to pump M2, the old M2 money supply, which, by the way, despite not being fully correlated in the last kind of few weeks or so, is still very much a key driver of crypto. Okay, gold has been following the M2 quite closely. Now we're starting to see Bitcoin follow that trajectory that gold has been taking, but it's a little bit delayed. Now, all of these different catalysts are about to move out the way, and the smart money behind the market makers and everyone else knows it. Okay, they are using narrative in the markets. They're using price action in the markets to shake you out and make you feel concerned and worried. And to find further proof of this, you only need to look back 24 hours or so. You see, Bitcoin fell down to around $104,000 on the 17th, which is Friday. Then, over the weekend and into Monday or Tuesday, which is yesterday, it pumped all the way back up to $114,000, where we were all feeling pretty good about the bull market back on. Okay, we went across to Twitter. Everyone's like, it's back, we're ready to go, only to then have the price suppressed once more. This was basically because Binance started to sell off Bitcoin. Okay, Binance started to sell off Bitcoin once more to suppress the price, hold the price in this zone. Now, you might hate them and feel that this is not right and whatever else. If you can't beat them, join them, okay? Effectively, they're just suppressing the price. They're just holding the price back. Eventually, Binance, all the exchanges, all the market makers, everyone wants the biggest, most aggressive bull market ever, okay? They just want to hold it back until the time and all the catalysts are aligned. We've talked about all the catalysts lining up right now, ready to be let out the gates. It's just not there yet. Now, enough waffling. Let's jump across to this gold versus Bitcoin chart, which tells us something very key. Now, you know, if you've been subscribed to my channel, I don't like to look too much at different indicators on the chart because they are lag indicators. And people are looking at these indicators for what's been happening in the past day or so. They don't really give us that much information. But if you were to use the relative strength index and use it on a longer time frame, it can actually show you some interesting kind of data that has been emerging over time. Now, on the top, you've got gold versus Bitcoin, and on the bottom, you've got Bitcoin. Remember, I said on Friday in that video that gold would likely rotate into Bitcoin and crypto, probably into the likes of ETH, etc. on top, you can see that I point out with green bubbles every single time that the relative strength index, or the momentum, has pushed significantly into overbought territories. Now, this doesn't always, but very, very often indicates a significant turnaround in market price is happened. Now you can see that this dotted line basically signals where overbought is. Sometimes, like back in November, it went over overbought levels. Here it just touched overbought levels. Here overbought levels. Here it just touched it again. And then since January of 2023, we haven't seen it touch again. We have now just touched it once more. We're now back up in that zone with gold basically starting to look like it's topping out. We know we had the signals on Friday to tell us that gold was looking to top out. And this is a very key indicator for us. Why? Well, these green bubbles I've aligned with black striped lines on the Bitcoin price below. Now, let me just zoom in a little bit further to show you what really happens here. Now, when we go into overbought levels, gold versus Bitcoin, which has been gold is very high against Bitcoin, you can see that effectively momentum slows very quickly. And when momentum slows, price starts to slowly go down here. Okay, not necessarily massively fast, but it slowly grinds down. The rotation happens very quickly on the RSI. If you go to December the 10th, 2018, which is going back a long way, I appreciate, Bitcoin hit around $3,200. On the 10th of December, by the 24th of June, which was 6 months later, price hit around $13,800, which is like $10,000 higher, okay? Which is like a 3x or something like that. Crazy, right? We go to the next one, which is here. 9th of March, 2020, Bitcoin tops out against gold. 9th of March, 2020. Where do we go? 9th of March, 2020. Now, what happened on the 9th of March, 2020? Effectively when COVID basically shut down the world. COVID had actually pretty much shut down China, which is where I was living at the time for like 2 or 3 months. China was pretty much in lockdown pretty much up until this date. Anyway, cool story. Let's get on with it. As you can see, this date, 9th of March, you can see the Bitcoin again got pushed down to $3,500. Lo and behold, when the price goes from overbought down to oversold, Bitcoin goes from like $4,000, $3,500, $3,800, whatever, to $64,000 like 13 months later. Now that's 13 months. Appreciate it. Now let's go to the next one. Here we have gold versus Bitcoin, very overbought on the 20th of June, 2022, kind of going in towards around the sort of 4th of July, 2022. Now, if we go to around those dates, which is what, 13th of June, 2022 to around the 4th of July, you can see the Bitcoin pretty much had been in a big sell-off. You can see Bitcoin basically sold off aggressively here. Gold was going up. We had a lot of kind of fear and worry in the markets. Bitcoin doesn't find its bottom. It goes to around 18,700. And lo and behold, sits in kind of bear market for the remainder of this kind of period until the next signal flashes on gold versus Bitcoin. Now, this came at the end of a almost year-long bear market. To anyone who's sat there right now in the comments saying that we are at the end of a year-long bear market, you're insane, because Bitcoin topped out on the 6th of October, which was around 2 weeks ago, okay? So around 2 weeks ago. Now, obviously, this signal did tell you that Bitcoin could go down further, okay? But the next one, where we see again, you can see Bitcoin versus gold. You can see again, tops out here in the overbought territory. This is when Bitcoin was worth $16,200. 2 weeks later, Bitcoin then goes up to around 23,000, to around 30,000, to around 31,000. This is a move that caught a lot of people on YouTube and Twitter and everyone who was just looking at charts. It caught them completely off guard because this was telling everyone that the sentiment was terrible. We were going to continue lower. Lo and behold, market moved up. Now we start to move into different traps. Now, moving to current day, what do we have? We have another signal moving into the overbought territory, okay? Now, you can see it doesn't quite hit, but if we go on the daily chart here, you can see that this ran into significantly overbought territory. Significantly overbought. Now, let me just break all this down for you. Gold tops out around the time that we see rotation from gold, the world's biggest asset class with $30 trillion in market cap, around 28 now that it's had that correction, flow into Bitcoin and the altcoins. Gold is an indicator of bad conditions or bad financial conditions in the world. High interest rates, wars, tariffs, and other things like that. All of these things, these four major catalysts are about to get swept out the way. Gold has just topped at a crucial time. This is all going to get swept out the way. We're going to go into better financial conditions. Gold, and all that money stacked in gold, can rotate into crypto. This has happened every single time over the past few years or so, okay? Now, you don't have to believe me. Go to tradingview.com and just go and put one of these charts here, top and bottom. Go and look at the gold price versus Bitcoin. Go and look at Bitcoin versus USDT. Go to indicators and write relative strength index. Use that, okay? And then it's going to give you a fairly good indication. Now, in the very short term, I'm kind of open to anything really happening. And here's why. You can see previously, before Bitcoin eventually gets on a big move, sometimes, not every time, but sometimes there are two wicks down to gather the liquidity. We've had one here. Okay, you could maybe argue that that's one there. And you can see here, we basically had another one here, okay, before moving to highs. This only was one time, okay? This here was like one time and then kind of visited a higher low here. This was just one time. Now, what am I telling you here? I'm telling you that no one knows for certain. This could happen one time, it could happen two times. By no means could we not just go up straight away from here and put in high lows. Worst case scenario, which doesn't really mean anything if we're just holding spot and chilling out anyway, is that we get a sell-off into around this zone here, which is just where previous sort of support lay, and then pump up. That would be a very, very aggressive move that would look something like potentially this. But I'm not convinced that that's really going to happen right now. I'm just prepared for it. If it does happen, I know that rotation's going on behind the scenes. I know that it is just to create liquidity, to cause fear and panic to spread even further, so that the smart money can accumulate the lows like they always do. If we look into Ethereum right now, what would this look like? Well, it could potentially just mean a shakeout down towards this kind of box, this area here, which would just be in line with this kind of chart pattern that we're seeing here. The end result is the same. Okay, the end result's the same, just means breaking out of this particular pattern. This is just the SOS phase of the Wyckoff accumulation, something that I've been showing you over the last few months. Effectively, this is going to send Ethereum to all-time highs, and when it happens, it's going to send many altcoins soaring along with it. Now, which altcoins? I've talked about key indicators for altcoins and tried to focus a lot more towards ones with strong fundamentals behind the scenes, ones that are running real businesses, making significant money, etc. Some of those have come back down to accumulation zones. Accumulation zones are where smart money accumulates, and then they pump up into good prices again. Effectively, all you need to identify is projects with strong fundamentals, etc. behind the scenes that will likely run strongly once eventually we get back into euphoria and excitement again, which is coming because literally always does after we see patterns emerging like we saw in the gold versus Bitcoin chart. Now, of course, go across and check out DeFiLlama.com, because on here you can see a lot of what's going on behind different chains and in different ecosystems. You can also do things like DAT tracking, which is digital asset treasury tracking, which is pretty useful as well. And you can see a lot more on different chains, which chains are still showing strength. Look, I know many people are a little bit shaken and worried about the prices right now. Okay, Ethereum, right now, you can see, sits at $134 billion total value locked. Solana, $15 billion. Sui sits up here, $2.6 billion. And look, stablecoin flows are going up. Fees paid, also crazy. So where is this all coming from? Well, you can go down below and find projects that are strong fundamentally, that are building on Sui. You can see the biggest one making the most fees in the last 24 hours is Momentum. Now, if you come down below, over the last few weeks, a lot of projects have been suffering because of bad price action, but Momentum, which is a decentralized exchange on Sui, has been seeing some significant growth in its TVL. And I decided to go and check out Momentum, which is DEX on Sui I've already talked about, with a lot of different other DeFi products, to see what they're doing. And you can see that right now they've been running this Airdrop festival. Now, this is due to finish in a couple of days' time. But if you're bored and you're annoyed about what's happening in crypto right now, why not go and participate in a different airdrop? Also, you can go and see what's happening in Momentum over the coming week or so ahead. Now, just as a disclaimer, I am personally invested in Momentum, which has yet to go live. So obviously, I invested in a pre-token launch round, like as a VC, but that's simply because it's showing strong fundamentals and I like to invest in good fundamental projects. If you go to Momentum on DeFiLlama, you can see right now TVL $491 million and continuing to surge towards the upside. This is pretty strong fundamentals from my point of view, and this is typically what I like to look at in projects. If you think about the projects that have been running really strongly over the last kind of year or so, we've seen Hyperliquid have an absolute stormer. What is it? Decentralized exchange. Momentum, decentralized exchange. We've seen Asta, decentralized exchange, having a very strong run. So we've got other DEXs also performing very, very strongly when market returns to strength and when we see volumes coming into the markets. If you want to go and get involved in Momentum, then jump across to their Twitter page here and you can just go and join their Airdrop festival and potentially go and make yourself some tokens. You can also keep up to date with Momentum. There's various different AMAs, one of which I was on yesterday, sharing more of what I know about Sui and where I think the ecosystem is going to be headed, etc. Now, guys, eventually the market will return to much warmer and fuzzier times. Right now, it's pretty bleak. I feel the pain too. I understand where you're at. But if you are wanting to kind of understand a little bit more about what's driving these markets and really trying to lock in your game, try and find the right projects, the strong fundamentals, etc., and how to study and really get better at this, then make sure you are subscribed to the House of Crypto. Also, do me a favor, if you made it this far through, hit the like button. It's quite challenging making content during these dry periods in crypto. Leave a comment down below as well if you enjoyed it, and let me know down below what else you want me to talk about on the channel. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye-bye.